Because of the matchups, that's actually the only battle we fought on on turn 3. Let's see, Badlands sector here. I had a fair amount of stuff available against one light cruiser. Remember, the Terrans don't have to spend on anything, so that immediately falls. And wow, it's down to another base. Now, do we want to blow another base up? I don't know. We'll see. Maelstrom sector. Well, Maelstrom is actually, that was actually the home planet. So that would be a base, a heavy cruiser, a battle cruiser, a scout, and a fighter squadron of 4 squadrons. A couple transports to defend this home. It's against a battleship and a battle cruiser. I don't think a battleship and a battle cruiser could take out the base on its own. When I found out, yeah, there's some real stuff here, a heavy cruiser, a battle cruiser. Screw it, I can't win the battle. There's something that kind of said I wanted to fight it anyway, until I saw just how overmatched I was, which is, I'm being the Talon now, which is that attrition's good for me. You know, the more I destroy, even if I take losses at odds, you know, overall maybe for the best, especially if I can keep a counter over here. Of course, the more counters that are there, the less, the more Terran ships there can be there. As far as I can tell, this counts as one front. And remember, the Terrans get to reduce their number of ships by the number, they get to reduce their TL or whatever, LP, that they have to put per sector based on how many counters are in here. The Talon have no such, and I think they treat it as a single front, even though there would be 2 channels going into it. It doesn't really help. Orion is the next one. Battle cruiser, heavy cruiser, destroyer against a light cruiser. The light cruiser has basically no chance. I have almost no opinion on, on the value of light cruisers. So, guess what time it is? Yep, it's time to go through all of the campaign activities again and build more forces and presumably try to end this. We'll see. Talon got over 500 points. What was it? I don't remember. It was like 550. The Terrans significantly less, 300 and something. I don't know. And you have to fill out, make sure you have one of each ship. Turned out Terrans had one of each ship. Talon, their weak spot was frigates. They built an extra frigate that would allow them to go up to 10 of any given ship. In this campaign, you do not need more than 10 ships of a given type because you can basically put 3 of each of that type in your initial setup. Anything over that is just reserves, so you have to take losses for them to count, and obviously they're not going to have the same impact on the battle. It would be better to build a more even construction than 10 across the board. For production, built another fighter squadron, fill out that 4th fighter that we had. A battleship, a light cruiser, and a destroyer. Why the light cruiser and the destroyer? I don't remember. It had to do with being able to meet low point expectations. And they were at 2 points per sector again because of the thing. So Orion, a light cruiser. Maelstrom, they left a heavy cruiser in. Not optimal, but they didn't have an easy way to move that heavy cruiser out of the Maelstrom sector up to the Terra sector. I don't know if I'm doing that right. It may be possible that, you know, they can always swap from a sector to the home planet if the home planet's under attack. But that's not how I decided to play it. Badlands, I put too much in here. I forgot fighters actually count for something. So each fighter squadron counts as 1, which means I put 4 fighter squadrons, a battle cruiser, and a scout here. That's quite a bit. What am I doing? Let it stand. I'm riding on it. The reason is I'm hoping I can defeat them here and here. And, you know, maybe reverse fortunes to some extent. I don't know. And in interiors, a battleship, 2 light cruisers, 2 destroyers, the 2 transports to protect the planet, and 4 fighters. We didn't see those transports doing me much good, and both sides spent on too many transports. But anyway, that's what they got sitting there. Now, all the points that the Talon had, they've got their damaged battlecruiser back in the reserve. He's got his damaged battleship back there. 7 hull hits on that thing. It's not worth it. The Talon did keep their damaged destroyer. They had another one with just 1 hit on it. Boom. It's in the front line again. But they had to pull that battlecruiser out. Their production was a frigate, a battlecruiser, 2 battlecruisers, a destroyer, and a battleship. Remember, I like battlecruisers, I like destroyers because they're anti-fighter capability, but I don't want to overload on any given ship type. And so what I've got here in Antares, and this is the big battle, a battlecruiser. Shit. I think that's actually 2 destroyers. My damn pencil writes so faintly and doesn't erase well. It's too hard a lead. This is a blank. 2 dreadnoughts, a couple transports. I had to bank the other transports there. 2 battleships, 2 light cruisers, another destroyer with a hull hit, and 2 frigates. It's a lot of shit. I think it'll be able to take it, and we're going to just do that battle right off because everybody wants this over. In the Badlands sector where the other base is, a dreadnought, 2 heavy cruisers, a light cruiser, and 2 more destroyers. Maelstrom, a battleship, and 2 battle cruisers. That was hard to shift stuff. I probably should have shifted more stuff into the Badlands, but whatever. And on Orion, 2 battle cruisers, a heavy cruiser, and a destroyer. Basically, I'm counting on pushing damn near everything forward except maybe Badlands. So if I don't manage to take Terra this turn, it's just going to keep getting uglier and uglier. I'll set up that possible final battle. Now, the scenario for the final battle in the game itself, presented as history, essentially, has the Terrans actually throwing the Talon back, and that's kind of the climactic battle for them. But the way it's all described, it sounds like they've lost the campaign and they've just bought themselves a little time. So we're getting the same effect here. I'm not sure how much I view that as a big positive. It's if it's the case, that the Terrans are harder to play or maybe are actually weaker, that may be a sign towards that of one sort or another to say, hey, don't worry too much, you're doing as well as they did historically. Okay, I'll set this monster up and unfortunately have to play it. Yeah, I'm definitely not enjoying this with a lot of ships in it. Time. The Terrans actually have to set up first. They have less ships. They have their planet. I could do something really cheap. And throw the planet over here and all the ships over there and more or less force the scenario to roll either the base or the planet off the map immediately, which kind of ends the scenario. I'm not going to do that, but that's, one effect that if somebody wanted to play the rules and not, the spirit of the game, that's what they could do, and it looks pretty damn clear to me. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the planet near the edge of the base's range, with the idea that way I can use maybe the planet to try to avoid missiles. Now, there are less missiles here as well, though. There's 2 destroyers and 1 battlecruiser. So I'm facing a slightly different type of Talon fleet than I've been used to facing. The missiles have been really deadly to the fighters. They just make life very hard because the fighters can't turn and fire on the missiles. They have crap fire arcs and they can try to outrun them. And a lot more heavy ships. I've got 2 dreadnoughts, 2 battleships. That's a lot of firepower. I decided that probably isn't 2 destroyers here. That looks like I actually tried to erase it, and I think the 2 destroyers that I had in mind is the fact that I had the damaged one there. I hope. I don't know. I could reconstruct it. I had 4, 5, 6 destroyers total. So let's see what I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, looks like actually I do have to have that extra destroyer. So that is the 2 times destroyers there. Oops. Boom, this is the result. Terran's obviously the base back here. A couple light cruisers on the side. Destroyers flanking the battleship. Screen of fighters in the front. See what happens. We've done enough like this. We know they're just going to get their asses kicked. And of course 2 transports back there, which I kind of don't even want to commit, because if I've lost the battle, fuck it. I just don't want to. The transports, because they're kind of required. Some frigates on the side, basically to provide some protection for the transports if need be. Light cruisers over here. The line of the capital ships, dreadnoughts, battleships, battle cruiser with its drones here. And then the squad of destroyers with their missiles, drones, whatever, to back it up. And of course, like every scenario of this, no matter what the circumstances, the Talon have the initiative. They're just better at this kind of thing, or something. I don't know what. I'll tell you one thing. It's quite possible that it's the setup, the 2 hexes in, the speeds of the ships, whatever, that determines that the Talon get their first shot if nothing tricky happens with the initiatives. By tricky, I mean it's stuff that the players can control. It may all be that the way the game is set up, with the Talon having initiative, it means they will get first shot. I did try to seize initiative with the Terrans, but I did some weird shit last time where the fighters flew off this way. So who knows, So maybe what I try this time is try to get that first shot, and maybe I can calculate it, maybe not. It's hard to tell because ships have different speeds, but these guys all have a speed of 3. That puts them in here. These guys have speed 3. That puts them there. That puts them 3 hexes apart. That is not bad disruptor range, not good fusion cannon range. Pretty good wave motion. Wave motion isn't going to be that big a deal here, though. I only have 2 of them. 1 on the battleship, 1 on the base. And the base doesn't move, so it doesn't count. The antimatter torpedoes, well, they want to get kind of close, but not all that close. They're like more potent disruptors with better effect. And of course the phasers, they pretty much want to get close. So it's kind of this weird mixture where, like, yeah, both sides kind of want to get close and to get their shot off. Some of the heavier weapons maybe work at a longer range, but the heavier weapons for the Talon work at a close range compared to the Terran, whose heavier weapon actually has a shot of doing some pretty impressive stuff at pretty far distance. But pretty far distant in this is 4 hexes apart, which is like dogfight range. That's like in SFB terms, and essentially a lot similar to that in terms of firing arcs and everything. That's right in there. I mean, that's the dance range where that's about as close as you want to get with certain races. And in this, that's extreme range for firepower. There's no shooting across the map or anything. Not that the map's very big. A lot less room for broad maneuvers that I like. Way too much emphasis on that kind of tactical micro movements that the game doesn't even support well enough. I mean, if we were talking about attack vector here, which obviously cannot be played, in big fleet battles. Yeah, that kind of dogfighting is what that game's about. It's hard for me to accept that, like, fleet battles don't have the capability for one side to kind of stand off from the other and try to hold them at a distance. But, that's just my conception of what a space battle should look like. There's nothing to say that this isn't more reasonable. It's just, I don't like it. Okay, and at the end of Impulse B, get a couple of these defends off. The Terrans have seized the initiative. They basically outspent using 3 versus 2, and I screwed up. I had an extra one here. Let me drop a shield defense. Not there. Let's drop a shield defense on that. Basically, 2 Talon ships bid to maintain the initiative. I'm wondering, has the initiative been the whole problem all along, that whoever has the initiative is going to win the first strike if we're going straight forward? You know, I mean, presumably I should be able to calculate that out. The next one is 2, 4, 5, 6. So these go forward, nothing else. I'm at range 4, the missiles can fire. That'll take out this first line largely. It's going to have to fire a lot of that out. Then the next one, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we move forward, and these move forward. And now we're in close range, and the fighters actually kind of disappear one way or another. That whole screen just absorbs a lot of the firepower, but it doesn't have much lasting capability from what we've seen so far. So I don't think it's going to make a damn bit of difference how much I'm spending on the initiative, but I'm giving that another shot. See if the fighters can serve some kind of purpose. You know, I mean, look, if they're ignored, if the Talon ignores the fighters, they're a dangerous and potent capability. We've seen that in play. However, they shouldn't be ignored. They won't be ignored. You know, the only time where I had some trouble with them was when there was a nebula for them to hide in, which didn't provide that much. It just, the fight ended up near the nebula, and I think the Terrans kind of were able to fire better than their weight during it. But so far, I've seen the fighters just get cleared out, and then whatever, you know, the follow-up, it just isn't strong enough here. Now, the base has a lot of follow-up, but it's immobile. So what can be done about that? Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. You know, the ships can't all cluster in the base and just sit there. Everything's got to kind of move. There's no capability. First of all, even the big ships, they have some forward movement no matter what you do with them. Right? No, the dreadnought can, the battleship can go up to a 0 movement, and the transport can go to a 0 movement. But for the most part, everything's got. Wait, no, that's energy. Yeah, the movement's here. Yeah, everything's always got forward movement, which means you've got no park in place and stay near the base. And also, at the beginning of the scenario, you're forced to go forward, and then you can't slow down very much. So there's almost like a scripting to how these scenarios start, because the ships start so close together, and there's just not much you can do about them. And for whatever reason, the Terrans still seem to think that their initiative strategy is worth playing out. Talons, screw that. I threw a bunch of shield reinforcement instead of trying to wrest it back. Because honestly, the thing is, this is not necessarily the round I wanted in. But I gotta be careful, because I'm in missile range now. This battlecruiser can launch a few missiles. Why don't we do it? And another big bid to hold initiative. I don't know what the hell it's gonna do. The missiles, well, the fighters, forgot to erase this one, but they shot, you know, two of my fighter squadrons taken out in terms of their first fire. They probably won't get another one. Just getting rid of those missiles. Now, we get the same old story, right? The fighters get wiped out. Maybe the Terran ships get a first strike on the front line of the main Talon line, but I'm not so sure. I got 3 ranks of destroyers that can do a lot of damage in terms of their own missiles. And what else is out there? Nothing else that's got missile capabilities. So I may just fly past the fighters and bombard in there. Of course, there's the risk of the transports, but you know what? I'm not that impressed with transports, and I forgot to move 2 of these. Just forgot about their existence. Yeah, so, you know, maybe I don't care. What I may want to do is I may want to power up to get the initiative right now. Because here's the thing. I'm in firing range. I move forward, I fire, I get to move forward again and fire again possibly. So I could be here. Range 4, not so good. I don't want to do it. I'm going to use my power for other reasons. I've got a lot of ships that are on the line here, I think. Yeah, the 3 is available. So my initial thought was this initiative system is kind of an interesting type of thing. It allows for this kind of not having to pre-plot your whole power alignment with the bidding coming off the power. But because of the timing of the powers and everything, I feel like there's sort of a gamey aspect to it that I just do not like. Again, though, I would rate it in there as ECM and ECCM type measures being taken under play. I would prefer that they be a bid at the beginning of the turn, to tell you the truth. The pulsing, the fact that like, oh, I don't have power on this impulse. Now, the Terrans have a little bit more flexibility on this because of their batteries, presumably. And I actually have a few batteries. I don't know why this guy didn't charge up a battery. My destroyers decided not to. All my other ships that had them did. Pretty much I forgot. As I get more comfortable, I feel like I'm getting more skilled with the Talon, but not with the Terrans. So for example, the Talon pushed forward, knocked out a couple of fighters using some disruptors. Now obviously they overpower these fighters tremendously. And this is one of the other problems. The fighters go streaming off at high speed. I tried to cut that down last time with cut to the right. Now I'm trying to charge forward again with initiative. Neither one's working. And I took out all the fighters that had working guns, and now the ones that do not have missiles targeted against them. I got enough to take them all out. So I've got an alpha strike, you know, on the main part of the fleet that's capable of doing a hell of a lot of damage to what's left of the Terran fleet. And, you know, because I've got this starting forward movement and everything, the defense of the base is not really that big a deal. I'm sure that's true for the Talon as well, that its base is not going to be that big a defensive piece. SFB has the same problem, except the base can shoot across the map and, you know, do significant damage. Maybe not wipe out, but do significant damage to some shielding. When you add that in conjunction with the rest of the fleet, you know, you can take out 2 smaller ships instead of 1 moderate-sized ship, or, you know, take out a big ship like a dreadnought or something like that. So you've got kind of this balance about things. And again, I want to reiterate, SFB is not going to happen anytime soon. I don't have it here. Half of Impulse F, the fighters turn away so I can save maybe 2 off of this squadron and 1 off this squadron, at least temporarily. They're not going to be able to live for long, but they can run from those missiles and, I don't know, maybe get a shot in later. We saw that didn't really happen any other time where that capability was. Another possibility is I can pull the missiles by other ships. Of course, that's dangerous. You start dragging missiles, they might end up hitting the other ships if a power is expended by the Talon missile ships. We had one success, though, which is we fired the wave motion gun, hit the battle cruiser, slammed it into a light cruiser, and, you know, did 1 hull hit. But it's the only weapon that works at anything like range in this game, basically. Right? The anti-matter torpedoes do too. Not quite as good out at range 4, unfortunately, and the destroyers are the ones carrying those. I don't have any, I think. I don't know, it's so hard for me to fucking tell. Looks like light cruisers are carrying them too. 1, 2, 3. I could pick off the missiles with them, but remember, gunfire is pretty fast in this game. Ships degrade very quickly. Those points of damage might be better expended on something else. It's hard to tell. What I can't do is I can't use the phasers, which I'd like to use. Out at range 3, they just suck. So, I mean, maybe. But again, I have more of a chance of blowing up ships. I think this campaign is over, But it feels to me, and it could just be my incompetence, I've said this again and again, that the Terrans are just outgunned across the board. Not sure why. I mean, obviously in this scenario, they are significantly outgunned. I'm not expecting them to be able to win this. But what I've been seeing is it's that initiative game that determines whether or not who gets the drop on whom. But it just feels like the Talon weapon systems, the ranges that they work at, etc., they're able to make up that ground and make that jump. Basically, there isn't much. The Terran's kind of like range 3. But the phasers like range 2. And phasers are a big part of their armament. The fighters can't get close enough. The missiles can fire out at range 4, and they eat up fighter firepower or whatever. And then you look at the Talon weapons, and yeah, range 3 isn't bad for the disruptors. The fusion cannon wants to get closer. The missiles are really good at long range, obviously. At the very least, they eat up phaser fire, which is going to do, the same kind of damage as the phasers do. So, it's kind of a, gee, I don't really know if I want to shoot the missiles down. They take 3 hits to kill, and they only do 2 hits each. But 2 hits is enough to knock out the fighter screen, and the fighters are pretty much neutralized by the missiles. So yeah, whatever's happening, it just feels like no matter what I do, positioning-wise and in terms of timing and everything, it's the Talon who are given the option of, do I want the drop? Do I want to be able to move and fire? Do I want the double move or whatever? It just seems to always fall on them to take that option. Not sure why. Anyway, on to the Talon move, and I'm hoping this is over really, really fast, actually. Talon, I had basically 2 options, both of which are kind of good. One is I could get my first strike off and not change the initiative at the end of the round. And that would allow me to probably significantly decrease the Terran firepower before next turn. And I would get to start recharging my weapons for next round. Now, of course, the Terrans have basically fired no weapons whatsoever. They fired the big gun. That's it. Just because of what I have. The other option is I could grab the control, move a space closer probably if I keep speed up, and get into a better range on these Terran ships and blow the crap out of them. And I'm going to go with that one. Either one is positive, though. Either one's a good effect. And I don't feel like I've ever been handed that kind of good choice with the Terrans. I don't know why it is. In this case, the Terrans really tried to defend, and there would have been a strong reason not to try to grab the initiative. But the truth came down to, I've got a lot of shield reinforcement already up. All these ships could have given themselves change orders. I had so much extra energy to throw into changes. Now that's because I have a big fleet, but and it's not fighters, which is another factor, because the fighters don't produce power, and they've been a proportion of my fleet each time. I thought that they would be more effective than they are. They've proven to be pretty damn hopeless. And I'm kind of beginning to think that may be the core of my problem, is that I bought fighters. And I went with a strategy that said, I want to use carriers, I want to use fighters, I want to use the specific weapons that the Terrans, have that should be good. They may just suck, and they may be what's causing this problem, is that cloud of fighters going out in front is just not worth the points that I spend on it. 4 fighters is what, 180 points close to? 176, Of course, you want them with the bases, but the carrier, maybe not. And I bought a lot of carrier groups to begin with. And so that may have been the biggest problem I had, is I made the assumption that the Terran's special weapon would be particularly good. Now, if the Terrans didn't have fighters and the Talon concentrated on their missiles the way they kind of did it early on, maybe this would have turned out differently. But the fact that both concentrated on what I saw as kind of like, gee, I thought fighters would be really awesome. And they kind of are, because if they don't get destroyed, they're easier to rebuild. They repair more easily than you would think they would. But I don't know how much of a deal that is. Other ships repair also. But in terms of what they actually can accomplish on the battlefield, man, they get chased away by the drones. I can only have 8 of them on the field. And they run ahead of the ships and get destroyed, which may just mean, they're not a great idea no matter what. Now, where I had 2 carriers with 8 fighters, there the fighters are a pretty hefty component of firepower. But again, a few missiles scare them right away. I don't know. So I decided to hold all fire. The initiative's going to flip over to the Talon. And now, the only bad part of grabbing the initiative at the end of the turn, you get this awesome first shot, but the bad part of it is all my power allocations are visible to the opponent. Look into some of the nooks and crannies where I'm not really able to, immediately discern stuff. I have a little suspicion that maybe there's an advantage to having the initiative flipped on you here, where now you could calculate out almost the whole turn and figure out where you need your power numbers to align so that you can beat the Talon, and get the jump on them. And you, of course, have the advantage of the batteries, so you don't have to align them perfectly necessarily. But, look for something like, if they're going at power 4, then I can use power 3 to slip into this space and grab initiative and get a double turn here or something like that. But honestly, I don't think that it works that way. But all I can say is I can see where maybe there's some level of play that can go up to that kind of, capability. But that's not a game I want to play, even if it is. It just is not. I want to be making broader decisions. And I feel like what this comes down to, and what this is actually intended, I don't think that's what it's intended for, even if it's possible. I think what this is intended to show is more of a dogfighting type game. And honestly, I just don't think that works in fleet battles. And I am at this point sorely tempted to just call the game. By jumping forward using some of those booster movement, pushed, I think, these 3 ships forward. That's a bunch of fusion guns. I didn't use this one. It didn't have anything in arc. But the battleship was destroyed between fusion guns and disruptors. The light cruiser over here was destroyed. This one you can see is not in great shape, but I used up my disruptors to kill that one off. This destroyer, badly damaged. Basically, all that's left is the base. What can I do about that? Well, I can't land on the planet yet, which means my landings can't be canceled. But what I can do is I can sort of stray away from the base, wipe out this destroyer on the way, and come back with a full strike again. That's going to be a tedious and expensive opportunity. And I just don't see playing it out. And what do I have for the Terrans? What is this? One phaser, one torpedo there. And I think this is a torpedo there. And we're not talking about a lot of damage. The torpedoes add up to 8 points of damage. The phaser at best is 2. So we're looking at 10 points of damage. I could take a shield down, a big shield, if I could get all of that firepower in one place. This is nowhere near in range. Everything can turn and get away from it. So I am sorely tempted to just call it right now. I haven't made up my mind entirely, but this is the battle for victory in the campaign. It's clear that the Talon had an overgunning situation. They had far more here than the Terrans had in play. Now, the Terrans could have thrown more ships into this. I have, let's see, Badlands. I have a battle cruiser and a scout, and I think some of that could have been shifted. Although I'm pretty sure at least the battle cruiser was able to shift up from there and wouldn't have been able to move back there unless I didn't look up the rules whether everything can kind of pull back to that home planet without, it looks kind of like it should be able to. It looks like you should be able to bridge from here to here very easily, but it's not, everything clearly goes towards that. So certainly if your front line is right on the border there, everything except Badlands should have been able to push there. Of course, Badlands is where this was, but the things that couldn't get to the Antares sector were in Maelstrom and made it to Badlands. So that's why so much was there. I mean, I just don't see the point. It's bloody obvious. We've got a side shield down here. We've got the front shield most of the way down here. This thing's pretty much wrecked. It's down power. It just, it's too easy somehow to maintain the ability to grab the initiative, maintain the initiative, whatever. I've got 2 bids towards maintaining initiative. Okay, well, 4, 5, and 6, that means this could spend 1 at most. I didn't even need to spend 2, but I wasn't sure I was destroying all their ships. Yeah. Now, obviously, again, there's so many enemy, so many Talon ships present here, so much firepower here. I don't think we were expecting the Terrans to be able to succeed in this battle. It's just, I don't see much point to fighting the rest of it out. I've considered it, and I don't think there's anything to even learn by finishing up, the current round. Actually, on round 2 here, maybe 3, I don't know, of this battle. The Talon just managed to crack anything they could have done, anything. And it's going to take quite a while to take the base out in the most effective manner possible. Once the base is gone, then the ships can land. I don't really even understand why there's all this planetary landing rules. They don't really do much. The only thing is you just have to have transports present in order to take a territory that has a planet in it. But, well, if there's no base, I could see things going a little differently. But with the base there, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And, I've said most of what I have to say about this. What it really comes down to is the game is either strongly unbalanced in favor of the Talon, or I'm missing something significant, or maybe sort of an in-between position, which is probably the most likely, which is that maybe the game's balanced, but the Talon are a whole hell of a lot easier to play. For whatever reason, things just fall. At least for me, the decision making is much, much easier for them. But I felt like it was a lot easier to screw up things with the Terran player, and that there was almost never an even battle that I felt like they had a shot with. Now, again, that could be that my choice of taking fighters for the Terrans with, yeah, I like fighters. They should be able to pack a good punch. And the Terrans have less ships than the Talon do. The Talon have more heavy ships. So I can't win the game, I would assume. I can't win the fight of more heavy ships. And the Talon have the fusion cannon, which affects more than one ship at once. Granted, the wave motion gun can sort of do a few points of damage to other things, but I gotta tell you, this thing, a big formation of ships, it's going to win the battles. So if things ever get to truly large battles, the Talon have the advantage there, right? They have the better weapon for it. Yeah. The Terrans, on the other hand, their special weapon appears to be the fighters, and I assume slipping them behind, trying to get them into those weak rear shields, that is their whole grand victory strategy. Well, I can't get out of the way of the juggernaut in time, and the missiles come and they take the fighters down. I just don't see an answer, and I'm not willing to keep experimenting with the game to try to find one. As to the campaign itself, I mean, it kind of snowballs pretty quickly. It's not something like the Fetternem campaign where one side is expected to take some losses and lose some territory, and then another race comes in and the balance shifts back and forth, which, whatever. The scripting there is somewhat disturbing. I would rather have something more open-ended, as I've said. But anyway, I can't keep going with this. When it comes down to the actual game and the fights themselves, with small amounts of ships, it's okay. Once you start getting to too many, it's too much of a dogfight type scenario for me to really enjoy watching the battle develop. I mean, let's put it this way. I like SFB the same way I like, a Napoleonic or Civil War battle. Forces slowly deploy, build up, a predominance in a certain area or whatever, and you just watch it kind of play out as it goes. And you might have to make some little tactical adjustments. You might have to make some major operational choices to change the situation as you're watching it, but it all kind of evolves slowly. Whereas this feels more like, I don't know, maybe a game of ASL or something, where I'm so worried about all the little hex positionings and stuff like that at a level where I don't think anybody should be considered. Because if what we're talking about is this dogfight type fast action situation, you don't feel like there's the time to consider it enough that you should be able to be lining up shots the way the game kind of, it's just the spirit is wrong. It's kind of like with ASL, if I've got, a couple minutes, if turns are representing just a couple minutes and we're doing firing opportunities and everything, there's not a lot of time to consider the tactics that are going on. It should really be split-second decisions. Theoretically, SFB should too, because the turns are so short. I don't remember, they're fractions of a minute, and it's just unreasonable that you make anything. But you spend a lot of time playing them, but you don't spend a lot of time making decisions. The big decisions you make is fire, don't fire. And, then maybe those could be pre-programmed or whatever. But here, it feels like you'd be working out a lot of the geometry and trying to figure out, can I beat somebody over on the initiative table? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it all just feels so false to me for this dogfighting type speed. I would much prefer, if I'm going to have a dogfighty type game, I want to be one person, one ship, and play it somewhat like a Blue Max type thing, where maybe serious time limits, like you have 20 seconds to pick your maneuver or whatever. The problem with that, of course, is you pick illegal maneuvers if you speed it up too much in Blue Max. But anyway, we're cleaning this sucker up, and I guess I'll come back with a review for it.